She used her fingers, that is the detail I keep returning to. Not the words themselves. I had heard versions of those words for 11 years, in various arrangements, at various volumes, across various family dinners that all eventually arrived at the same destination. It was the fingers. The way my stepmother, Claudia, set down her wine glass with a soft, precise click and raised her right hand and began, one by one, to count. The marketing job, index finger. Gone after 8 months, the agency, middle finger. 2 years of nothing, the so-called consulting work, ring finger, which none of us ever actually understood, and now this, pinky, whatever this is. She looked at her 4 raised fingers the way a professor looks at a completed equation, with the satisfaction of someone who has proven a point through the orderly accumulation of evidence. 4 failures, she said, in 11 years. That is your record, Nora. That is what you have built. 18 people at the Thanksgiving table went quiet. My father looked at his plate, my half-sister Jade, who was 15, and had the particular social awareness of a teenager who understands more than adults give her credit for, looked at me with an expression that was equal parts apology and helplessness. My Aunt Patricia cleared her throat, and I sat at the head of the family table. A position Claudia had assigned me, I understood now, with the deliberate geometry of someone who wanted me visible, centered, fully illuminated by the dining room chandelier when the counting began. My name is Nora Calloway. I am 33 years old, and this is the story of the Thanksgiving dinner where my stepmother counted my failures on one hand and discovered 11 days later that the name authorizing her bi-weekly paycheck was mine. My mother left when I was 7. Not died, left. Packed a bag on a Tuesday, kissed me on the forehead with the careful tenderness of someone who knows it is the last time, and drove away in a car that I watched from the upstairs window until it turned the corner and became a fact rather than a moment. My father remarried when I was 10. Claudia arrived with good posture, strong opinions, and a very clear understanding of the difference between the family she was building and the family that had existed before her. She was not unkind to me in any way that could be named and held up for examination. She fed me, clothed me, attended school events when my father could not. She performed the logistics of step-parenting with reliable competence. What she did not do, what she had never done, in 23 years of being the woman in my father's house, was see me. I was a remnant, a piece of a previous arrangement, something that had come with the house, like old furniture, that didn't quite match the new decor, but that couldn't be easily removed. She had managed me, never known me. And on this particular Thanksgiving, with 18 family members, arranged around a table she had set with her characteristic precision, she had decided that managing was no longer sufficient, and that what the moment required was a full public accounting, 4 fingers. 11 years, 1 verdict. What Claudia did not know, what no one at that table knew except me, was what the 11 years had actually contained. I had not told them. Not from secrecy exactly, and not from strategy, but from the accumulated exhaustion of trying to explain something to people who had decided not to understand it. I had tried, early on. I had described what I was building in terms I believed were clear. The attempts had been received with the polite blankness of people looking at a painting they found inaccessible, and after enough of those conversations, I had stopped trying and simply built. This is what the 11 years contained. At 22, I had taken a position at a marketing firm, Claudia's index finger, that I had left after 8 months, not because I had failed, but because I had, in those 8 months, understood exactly what was wrong with how the firm approached client data, and had developed a methodology for correcting it that the firm's senior partners had no interest in hearing from someone 22 years old with 8 months of experience. I had taken that methodology with me. At 24, I had joined a boutique agency, Claudia's Middle Finger, where I had spent 2 years not producing nothing, as she had described, but building the client analytics framework that the agency still used, and more importantly, building the professional network that would become the foundation of everything that followed. At 27, the consulting work, Claudia's ring finger, which none of them had understood because I had stopped explaining, had been the 3-year period during which I had incorporated Callaway Data Partners, signed my first 4 enterprise clients, and built the infrastructure of what was now a 12-person data analytics and workforce management firm operating across 6 states. The so-called consulting work had generated, in its most recent fiscal year, $4.3 million in revenue. Among our 28 clients was a regional healthcare network, headquartered in the city where my father and Claudia lived. The network was called Meridian Health Partners. Claudia had worked there for 7 years. She was a senior program coordinator, a role whose compensation structure, benefits package, and bi-weekly payroll processing had been managed. For the past 14 months, by Callaway Data Partners, by me, the name on the payroll authorization for every check Claudia had received in the past 14 months was mine. She did not know this. She had been counting my failures with her fingers while cashing paychecks that bore my signature. I had known since the day we signed the Meridian contract. I had said nothing. Not because I was planning something, not because I was waiting for a moment, simply because it was a business fact, not a personal one, and I had built a business, not an instrument of family justice. Then she raised 4 fingers under the chandelier, and something in me that had been patient for a very long time made a quiet decision. I drove back to my apartment on Friday morning. I did not call anyone. I did not message anyone. I sat with the dinner for 24 hours in the specific way that I processed things, fully, without rushing toward a conclusion, giving the feelings room to become information rather than reaction. What I felt, sitting with it, was not the hot, immediate anger I might have expected. It was something colder and more clarifying. The feeling of a person who has spent 11 years building something real while being told, with consistent confidence, that they were building nothing, and who has arrived, finally, at the moment when the gap between those two realities is no longer something she is willing to quietly hold alone. On Saturday morning, I called my operations director, a meticulous and steadily excellent woman named Rosa, and asked her to send me the full Meridian Health Partners account file. Rosa sent it within the hour. I opened the payroll roster. I found Claudia's name, Senior Program Coordinator, 7 years with the network. Compensation package comfortably in the mid-range for her role. Processed without exception on the 1st and 15th of every month for the past 14 months. I looked at her name for a long time. Then I did something that surprised even me. I looked at her compensation level against the current market rate for her role and experience. She was being paid 11% below market, not dramatically, not egregiously. The kind of gap that accumulates gradually through annual adjustments that lag the market rather than track it, and that nobody addresses unless someone is specifically looking. I had been specifically looking. I called Rosa back. The Meridian Senior Program Coordinator tier, I said. I want to run a full compensation benchmarking analysis against current market rates. That's not scheduled until Q2, Rosa said. Move it up, I said. This week. Rosa did not ask why. This was something I had always valued about Rosa. The analysis came back on Monday. The gap was consistent across the tier. Not just Claudia, but 11 senior program coordinators at Meridian, whose compensation had drifted below market at varying degrees over the past 3 years. I reviewed the analysis. I reviewed it again. Then I called Rosa and told her to prepare a compensation correction recommendation for the full tier, effective the next payroll cycle, with retroactive adjustment for the period since our contract start date. Retroactive for 14 months? Rosa said. That's a significant back pay figure for some employees. I know, I said. Do it correctly. She prepared the recommendation. I reviewed it. I signed it. My name, Nora Calloway, at the bottom of a document that would result in Claudia receiving a market rate compensation adjustment and 14 months of back pay in her next paycheck. I did not call Claudia. I did not call my father. I signed the document, sent it to Meridian's HR director for implementation, and went back to work. The notification arrived at Meridian Health Partners on a Wednesday. A formal letter to all affected employees in the Senior Program Coordinator tier, informing them of the compensation correction, the adjustment to their base rate, and the retroactive payment that would appear as a separate line item in their next paycheck. Claudia called my father that evening. My father called me the following morning. Claudia got a letter, he said. His voice had the particular careful quality it took on when he was navigating something he didn't yet fully understand. From a company called Callaway Data Partners. I know, I said. A pause. Callaway, he said. That's my firm, I said. Yes. Another pause. Longer. You process her paychecks. My firm manages HR and payroll for Meridian Health Partners. Has for 14 months, Nora. His voice changed. Something moved in it that I had not heard in a long time. Why didn't you tell us? Would it have changed anything? I said, not sharply. Genuinely, he was quiet. The letter, he said, it says she's getting a raise. Back pay, her compensation tier was below market rate, I said. We identified it during a routine analysis and corrected it. All senior program coordinators at Meridian received the same adjustment. You gave her a raise, he said slowly. I corrected an error, I said. She happens to be one of the employees affected. A long silence. She counted 4 failures, I said quietly. At Thanksgiving, in front of 18 people. I paused. And my name has been on her paychecks for 14 months. I wanted you to understand both of those things at the same time. My father was quiet for what felt like a very long time. I should have stopped her, he said. Yes, I said. You should have. I've let this go on for a long time. You have, I said. I didn't know what you were building, he said. I should have asked more. You should have, I said. But that's not actually the issue. Dad. The issue is that you sat at that table and watched her count. And you looked at your plate. I paused. I need you to understand that I've been fine. I've been building something real for 11 years. But I've been doing it without you. Because being without you was less painful than being dismissed by the person next to you. The silence that followed was the most honest thing my father had offered me in years. I know, he said. I know that. Claudia called me 3 days after my father. I had given her the 3 days, had not reached out, had not preempted, had given her the full space of the week to sit with the fact and decide what she wanted to do with it. She called on a Sunday evening. I've been trying to understand what to say, she said, when I answered. No performance, no preamble. The voice of a woman who had run out of the social machinery she normally used to manage difficult conversations and was operating without it. Take your time, I said. You've been processing my paychecks, she said, for over a year, yes, and you didn't say anything. It's a business relationship between my firm and your employer, I said. It's not personal. But you knew, she said, every time you knew, yes, a silence. And then you gave me a raise, she said. The words arrived with a quality I hadn't heard from Claudia before. Something stripped. You corrected my pay, She stopped. After you counted my failures on your fingers in front of my family, I said. Yes. After that. The silence was the longest of the call. Why? She said finally. Why didn't you why correct it? Why not? Because that's not what I built, I said. I built a firm that does its work correctly, that treats people fairly regardless of what they've done to me personally. That's not virtue. It's just, that's the standard I hold. I paused. You told me for 11 years, in various ways, that I had built nothing. I wanted you to know what nothing looks like when it signs your name. Claudia was quiet for a long time. I owe you an apology, she said, a real one. Not for the letter or the paycheck, for the 11 years. I had imagined this moment in different forms across different years. Had imagined feeling triumphant or cold, or the particular relieved satisfaction of a debt being finally acknowledged. What I felt was something quieter, the specific tiredness of a person setting down something they have carried for a very long time. I know you do, I said. I'm sorry, Nora. Her voice was plain. No decoration, no strategic softening. I looked at you and saw a problem instead of a person. I've been doing that for 23 years, and I don't have a good reason for it. No, I said. You don't. Is there anything I can do? I thought about this honestly. See me correctly going forward, I said. That's it. That's the whole thing. She was quiet. I'll try, she said. Good, I said. That's enough to start. My father called on the following Sunday. He called to ask if I would come for Christmas. Not a family event. Not an occasion with an agenda. Just Christmas. Our family, our house, the particular imperfect warmth of people who are trying to do better than they have done. Will you be there? I asked. I'll be there, he said. And this time I won't look at my plate. I thought about the dinner table, the chandelier, the 4 raised fingers, the plate he had studied instead of the daughter he should have defended. Okay, I said. I'll come. Good, he said. Jade will be happy. She asks about you, you know, more than you think. I know, I said. Tell her I'll bring the thing she likes from that bakery. She'll remember you said that. I know that too. Christmas was imperfect in the way that family Christmases are when the people in them are attempting something they haven't quite learned the shape of yet. Claudia was careful. Not warm, not yet. Perhaps not for a long time, but careful. She asked questions. She listened to the answers. She did not raise any fingers. My father stayed present in a way he had not been for years. He asked about the firm. He asked about the clients. At one point, he looked at me across the table with an expression I recognized from childhood. Before the remarriage, before the management, before the 11 years of looking at plates, and said simply, "You've done well, Nora." 3 words. 11 years of building, compressed into 3 words, delivered across a Christmas table by a man who had been late in arriving at them. It was not everything, but it was real. And real things, even small ones, are worth more than large performances. Jade sat beside me at dinner. She was 15 and sharp, and had the particular gift of seeing people accurately that sometimes skips a generation and lands in the one that needs it most. At one point, she leaned over and said quietly, in the voice she used when she wanted to say something true without anyone else hearing, "I always knew you were doing something. I didn't know what, but I knew it was something." I looked at my half-sister, this 15-year-old who had watched from across the table for years, who had looked at me with apology and helplessness on Thanksgiving night, who had apparently been paying a different kind of attention than anyone else in the room. "How did you know?" I said. She shrugged. "You never looked worried," she said. "Everyone who's failing looks worried. You just looked busy." I thought about that for a moment. "That might be the most accurate thing anyone has ever said about me," I said. She smiled, the smiles of someone who knew it. I think about those 4 fingers sometimes. Not with bitterness, or not only with bitterness, with something more complicated. The recognition that a person can be comprehensively wrong about you for 11 years while you are building, quietly and without announcement, the evidence of their error. That the evidence doesn't require presentation. That eventually, if you build long enough, it presents itself. A paycheck, a letter, a name at the bottom of a document, not revenge, just truth, arriving in its own time, wearing business letterhead. And the woman who had counted my failures with her fingers had spent 14 months cashing checks that carried, in small neat print at the authorization line, the name of the nothing she had made. Nothing, it turned out, had quite a signature. Before you go, I need to ask you one thing. If you were Nora, would you have done the same? Would you have corrected that paycheck and given her the raise? Or would you have made a different choice? Tell me in the comments right now. I read every single response, and I want to know what you would have done. If this story hit something real for you, if you have ever been counted out by someone who had no idea what you were building, hit that like button so this story finds the people who need it. Share it with someone in your life who is quietly doing the work while the wrong people are watching. And if you believe that the most powerful thing a woman can do is build in silence and let the truth speak for itself, subscribe right now, because every single week we bring you stories of women who were told they were nothing and built everything. Your first month of Audible is completely free. Over 500,000 titles waiting in the description below. For the builders, for the ones who kept going, the link is right there. Use it.